Hey everyone, this video lesson is for Wednesday, March 3rd, and you are home doing your remote learning day, and we are about to start lesson 16. And so to give you some basic vocabulary, I'm going to be just going over some notes with you today, and I'm going to just pull that up here, and this is in your packet. And we are going to go through some new vocabulary and some additional vocabulary. We're going to still be talking about expressions, but we are going to be introducing some algebra. So algebra is not supposed to be scary. Once you understand the vocabulary and how it goes together, I think you'll see that it is not that bad. So this is in a Pear Deck for you if you are not having your packet with you. If you're a all remote student, you can use the Pear Deck. If you are a hybrid student and you have your packet, I would suggest opening that up to page, let me see here, what page is it? Sorry, it is page 4. Let me see. Nope. Hang on. Page 8. Okay, so we are on page 8. It actually is a double copy, so you only obviously have to fill it out on the left-hand side. So otherwise, you're on Pear Deck, and here we go with some new vocabulary. So I'm just going to make sure my pen is working. And here we go. So you'll notice that this notes start off talking about different parts of an expression, okay? In lesson 15, we learned that expressions don't have equal signs and they involve numbers and an operation. The only difference now is that we see this letter, okay? And algebra does have letters in it. And the letter stands for an unknown. We don't know what that number is yet, and that is called a variable. So I want you to label that M as the variable. A variable is an unknown number. So it does stand for a number, but we don't know what that number is yet. So we're just going to call it M or X or P. Okay, so usually we don't see variables with the variable, the letter O, because that would look like a 0. We also will see if it is an L, it'll be a cursive L as a variable. That didn't come out right. There we go. Otherwise, they're always lowercase letters unless it is a formula. Then you might see like a capital A for area. And all it means is that we don't know what that number is yet, so we're just going to call it a letter, okay? Now you see the number next to the letter, the variable, is 4. That's a special part of the expression, and it is called a coefficient. Okay, I'll say that one more time. Coefficient is the number that is kind of sitting right next to the variable. So let's add that into our notes. I'll change colors here just to be coefficient. Coefficient is the number that is sitting to the left of a number, okay? Or sorry, so it's sitting to the left of a variable. I said that wrong. It's early. I'm doing this before school. So coefficient, I'm just making sure I spelled it right. Yes, of course. Awesome. So it's the number that is a factor of a variable term. Now, I just said a lot of new words here. So let me back up and say that this expression has two parts to it, and there's an addition sign in between. Do you see that? So there's the 4m part, and then there's the 12, okay? And then there's the sum, the addition sign in the center. So both of those parts on the left and right of the addition sign are called terms, okay? So a term is right here, and another term is the 12. They make up, with the addition sign, an expression. So this whole thing is an algebraic expression because it has a variable in it, and the variable makes the term on the left a variable term. It just means that it's a term that has a variable in it. Okay, so whoops, that just was very odd. So hold on right here. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to rewrite some of this. Okay, so I love it when my board does things on its own. Variable, there we go, and let's rewrite that. Variable term. Okay, so the whole thing is an expression. This particular expression has two terms, the 4m on the left and the 12 on the right, and it's connected with an addition sign. The 4m is a special term called a variable term because it has a variable in it. And the 12 is special, and it has a special name because it is all by itself and it is just a number, and we call that a constant. Because no matter what happens, whatever m ends up being, we're always going to do the same thing after we figure out that left side term. We're always going to add 12 to it. That part never changes. That's why the 12 is called a constant. Because the m could be 1, the m could be 5. We don't know what it is yet. But after we figure out what 4m means as a number, and we simplify that, we're always going to add 12 to it. So that 12 is called a constant. Now, back to the coefficient. The coefficient, the definition is that it is the known factor in that variable term. So factor means multiply. So anytime you see a coefficient, it is just kind of hanging out right next to the letter, right? There's no symbol of addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division there. They're just kind of stuck together. So since a coefficient is the known factor, those two, 4 and m, are being multiplied together. We don't show it with any dot or any X or any parenthesis, but when you see a coefficient and a letter, or a number and a letter kind of sitting side by side, that means they are being multiplied. So it's kind of like they're stuck together with some magical glue, and that glue is multiplication. So that 4 is being multiplied by m because the two of those are factors. So hopefully that makes sense. So if m is 1, we would then multiply 4 times 1 and then add 12. If m was 5, we would multiply 4 times 5 and then add 12. So it depends on what m actually is as a value. We'd have to know that before we could simplify that down to one number. Okay, so simplifying just means we're going to solve as much as we can. Right now, we can't solve anything yet because we don't know what m is. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next slide. You just have to go down on your notes if you're in your packet. If you're in Pear Deck, slide to the next slide with me. So we're going to name the coefficient, the variable, and the constant, and we have a different expression. This is 3r minus 4. So the coefficient is always the factor in the variable term. So we have to look, where is the variable? The variable is right here. The variable is r. This is the variable term because it has that r in it. These are two terms, 3r and 4, being subtracted, and the 4 is the number all by itself, so that's the constant, and the coefficient is that number sitting next to the variable. So just a little application of the vocabulary terms that we just went over. So another thing that I want you to practice is writing your own expression, meaning you have to pick an operation and we want it to have a constant of 6 and a variable s. So I'll do one for you. It could be that you use addition. And so we're going to add 6, but we have to have that s in there. So it could just be s. If you just see that variable s, the coefficient is actually 1s, because if you multiply that s times 1, it's going to be the same number. So even though you don't see a coefficient next to that s, I'm going to get rid of it, it actually does have a coefficient of 1, because any factor times 1 is itself. So that could be an example of an expression. You could then put a different coefficient and still use addition, or you could use subtraction. So go ahead and fill in the next two. These are going to be different than mine, and so I'll give you a second to do that on your own. So I might pick 4s, 4s minus 6. And I could have a fraction as a coefficient. So my last one, I'm actually going to do 1/2 s plus 6. So you can have a coefficient that is a decimal or a fraction. Okay. All right. Last thing in this video, it was a quick one today. I just want you to get a head start on these vocabulary terms, is some true and false. So I just have to move this down up a little bit so you can see that. Okay. So here's the expression. Oftentimes you're going to see the letter x as our variable. And so we have an expression called 6x plus 9. And I want you to take a moment and read through these statements and decide whether they're true and false. And if you are in your packet, you can just jot down true, false, true, false, true, false, whatever you're thinking on the side somewhere, and then double check and make sure and see if you got them right. If you are on your Pear Deck, you can just circle or highlight or whatever tickles your fancy. So I'll give you a minute or two, pause the video, and resume when you're ready to check your answers. So does the expression have one term? Well, this is a false statement because we have 6x over here and 9 over here, and it is being added. So this is a two-term expression. Hopefully got that right. The next one reads, the number 6 is not a coefficient. Well, that one is also false because it actually is the coefficient. So this is just applying our vocabulary here. Hopefully that one was something you figured out. The expression, the third one, has one variable term. So remember, a variable term is a term that has a variable in it. So if this had said plus 2x, that would be an example of a expression that has two variable terms. But since that is not part of the expression, it does only have, this is a true statement. Whoops, sorry. This is a true statement. It has one variable term. It's this 6x. The variable in the expression is x. Well, that's the letter that we see. So yes, that is true. And the number 6 is a constant. No, that is false because the 9 is that constant number, the one that's all by itself being added in this case. So that is my intro. We are going to review these vocabulary words on Thursday, and so hopefully it'll be a nice way for you to solidify. There's a lot of new vocabulary as we launch into algebra, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye.